Hey, what's happening? Welcome back to the GM. I'm your guy, Leon Boulanger, and up next, we're going to break down the 2023 Baltimore Ravens list of free agents. This list of free agents is a pretty extensive list, and so it will kind of give us an indication of how much work the Baltimore Ravens have to do this offseason. Uh, and it kind of falls right in line with a video we produced on Monday, or a series of videos, 8 separate videos, I believe it is, on breaking down the Baltimore position groups, uh, each group one at a time. So be looking for that to be released on Wednesday, January 25th. But no further ado, let's jump right into this breakdown. Let me share my screen with you guys. Give me 1 second. Right, let me get this Chrome opened up. There we go. All right, first up on this list of free agents is no other than Lamar Jackson. If you're a Baltimore Ravens fan, unless you've been sleeping under a rock all year long, you know that Baltimore and Lamar have been in contract talks in the offseason. And Lamar proclaimed that if the season started and there was no deal in place, that he would not negotiate. Well, of course, the Baltimore seasons came to an end last week, and so I guess the negotiating period has opened back up. But at this point in time, we have not heard of any rumors, any speculation of contract talks being reengaged. So at this point, huge question mark at the quarterback position for the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson is 26 years old. He has 4 years of experience in Baltimore. And as you see, his 2022 salary was $23 million. And whether he plays on a franchise tag, which I do not believe he will, um, that tag is going to come in around 45 million, which would double his previous salary. So stay tuned for what's going on with Lamar Jackson. We will certainly bring you any news on any contract talks, any renegotiations, any of those kind of things. As we scroll down, we're gonna run into Marcus Peters. And if you watched Baltimore this year, you saw Marcus Peters have a few blow-ups with John Harbaugh and some sideline things going on when he was upset about on-field play or even on-field outcomes. And so do not believe Marcus Peters is going to come back, which leaves a hole at the starting cornerback position on the opposite side of Marlon Humphrey. But I think we all could have expected that. Marcus Peters had a season-ending knee injury in 2021, took his whole season and came back this year, not 100% necessarily. Marcus expressed some concern about his confidence, things of that nature. And he's 30 years old, and we have certainly seen a decline. Um, and so do not believe that Baltimore will bring him back in the 2023 season. So look for Marcus Peters to be on a new team in the next season. As we keep rolling, we're going to run into defensive end Justin Houston. Justin Houston is 34 years old, and at this point in his career, there's always going to be a question of if he's going to stay or go, right? We know that Justin Houston contemplated retirement last year and don't know if he wants to go through the rigors of training camp, preseason, and then a 17-game season again. Um, at least he may not want to do that with Baltimore, especially with so many questions looming in the Baltimore organization. If he wants to, try and get a Super Bowl on the way out the door, he may decide to go elsewhere to get his championship ring. We see that his 2022 salary was a little over $3 million. And in order for them to bring him back, I believe it's going to take at least that much to convince him to delay retirement and suit back up for the Baltimore Ravens. As we keep rolling, we're going to run into cornerback Kyle Fuller. Kyle Fuller was a feel-good story. At least we were hoping it would be for the Baltimore native to come home and play. He was definitely going to serve a vital role at that nickel cornerback position and maybe backup outside corner, which we saw we needed at times this year. But Kyle Fuller tore his ACL in the first game of the season, so that story never got underway. Kyle Fuller's 30 years old and coming off an ACL for a cornerback in your 30s leaves more questions than answers. His 2022 salary was $2.5 million, and it's going to take at least that much to convince him to come back. Uh, he may want to take up the next chapter of his career elsewhere, but I don't mind him coming back. I would like to see, another veteran in the locker room, but only if Kyle Fuller is healthy. If there's any sign that he won't be healthy and his productivity will be in question, then it's best to let Kyle Fuller walk in free agency. Number five is going to be right tackle, who also played left tackle this year, Jawan James, who is in the midst of his second Achilles rehab. Um, really played well at left tackle this season in replace of Ronnie Stanley, but suffered that injury, lost him for the season, and not 100% sure if Jawan James will make it back this time. Another rigorous process uh, to a ACL injury. Um, so I do not believe Jawan James is back in 2023 with the Baltimore Ravens. As we keep rolling, we're going to get to number six, which is wide receiver Sammy Watkins. And and we know that Sammy Watkins was kind of a cast off after the 2021 season. He ended up signing with I believe it was the Green Bay Packers, unproductive there. They released him. Baltimore brought him back at a time where we needed wide receiver help. Uh, but I do not see Sammy Watkins coming back. If they didn't want him at the end of last year, I don't see them bringing him back this year. But I got some more analysis on his status uh, in the wide receiver video when I break down depth chart position. He's 29 years old. His last year's salary was roughly $1 million, basically. But I do not see them bringing him back in 2023. When we stroll down to number seven, we have defensive end Jason Pierre-Paul, or JPP, who made some noise this year, made a lot of big plays, got an interception, was always around the quarterback. Now, JPP may be one of those guys who makes a return to Baltimore. I have not heard talk of JPP retiring before he came to Baltimore. I did not hear about him retiring during this season. So he may be one of those veterans who may decide to return. But I don't know. As you see, his base salary for Baltimore was, a little over $1 million. I think it takes more than that to bring him back. You know what I'm saying? And an elder statesman at the pass rush position. I think it may take a little more to bring him back, especially because he's already a multi time Super Bowl champion. So he's not in desperate mode to sign with anywhere to get another ring. So I think it may be a possibility that JPP comes back, but at this point, I'm certainly unsure because Baltimore definitely has some holes at that defensive end position. As you scroll down, as you see next up, we have another defensive end, Brent Urban or Irvine, however you want to pronounce it. He's 31 years old. He is um, an original draft pick of Baltimore. He left, played for a few other teams, returned this year on really a cheap deal, brought him back for a little over $1 million. I do see Urban returning. I think that if he returned this past year on a cheap deal, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't uh, do what's called a hometown discount and return to Baltimore and play a nice backup role, add some depth and some veteran leadership. He is in search of a Super Bowl championship, so I certainly think that there is a good chance that Brent Urban does return to Baltimore in the 2023 season. We have defensive end Steven Means. His time in Baltimore never got underway. Had a season-ending injury, which kind of took him out for the whole season, of course. And at his age, 32, recovering from a major injury, not sure if he makes it back to full health in time enough for training camp. And so I do not see Steven Means returning to Baltimore. Not a whole lot to say about Steven Means. As we keep strolling down, we run into tight end Josh Oliver. Excuse me. I did not know he was a free agent, but I think that he may be. Man, it's hard to say, but I think he may be gone in 2023. He's a young player, 25 years old. Show some flashes, both blocking and receiving. Does have some talent, hasn't made a ton of money, so he may be looking to get a little bigger deal, but I'm not sure uh, if anybody's looking to give him a ton of money. He could return to Baltimore because he can play probably that fourth tight end spot, or maybe even at times a backup fullback position. I say there's a 50-50 chance that Josh Oliver returns in 2023, but he definitely showed some flashes and shown up as a quality depth guy at the tight end position. So I think it may be 50-50 that he returns in 2023. Man, this list is getting long. Number 11, we have Kenyon Drake. Um, At this point in time, I do not see him returning in 2023. He's already 29 years old. He did show some burst, some speed, some receiving ability. He absolutely did. He came to Baltimore of course, a 1 year deal, just $1 million, which is really really a solid deal for maybe a third or fourth string running back, but do not see him returning unless they do cut Gus Edwards for as a cap casualty, and they bring Kenyon Drake back as a veteran backup for the Baltimore Ravens offense. But at this point in time, I do not see him returning to the Baltimore Ravens. We keep going. We see that number 12 is wide receiver Demarcus Robinson. At one point this year, I thought that, he would be a candidate to return. Um, he was definitely making some plays. Definitely, gave up some plays for sure with a lot of drop balls and things like that. But his play at the end of the year was so up and down. And John Harbaugh has vowed to rebuild and stock up this wide receiver room. So I'm not sure if they're going to have space for Demarcus Robinson. If he does come back, I think it has to be on something like a similar deal, a 1 year, $1 million deal for maybe a guy who slots in at a fourth or fifth spot. But at this point in time, I do not see Demarcus Robinson returning, just simply because he left too many plays out on the field for a veteran receiver. Okay, as we get on down to number 13, we got outside linebacker Vince Beagle. Um, do not see him returning to Baltimore. He is kind of young at 27, but he is known to have some injuries. And of course, he lost him this season because of an injury. Of course, he was in Baltimore 1 year, $1 million deal. Ended up on injured reserve, of course. And um, I don't know enough about him to make an assessment, but I do not see him back in Baltimore only because we got three young studs, kind of in front of him, and don't know if he'll be ready to prove himself in training camp and in the preseason with the type of injury that he had this past season. So I do not see Ben Spiegel coming back in free agency. As we slide down and get down to number 14, we have Kayvon Seymour. Now, this is a guy who started out in Carolina has been in Baltimore for several years now and had really shown um what's the word? Some ability, right? He's shown some ability on special teams. He's shown some ability to cover. Not a lockdown guy by no means, not a cover guy by no means, but he is a quality veteran. And if some of these other guys at cornerback leave, we're definitely going to need some veterans to fill in some of those depth spots. So I do believe that Kayvon Seymour could be an option to return to Baltimore, especially if he comes back at a real friendly deal. As you see, his this year's deal was right at $1 million. So maybe he'll return. So at this point, I say it's 60-40 Kayvon Seymour does return to Baltimore in the 2023 season. As we keep rolling, we got linebacker. Uh, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Maybe it's Jermaine Pratt. I hope that's correct. I don't want to butcher anybody's name. Young guy, 26. Do not know enough about him to make an assessment. But simply because I do not know enough about him, that means I didn't hear his name in any games, didn't make any splash plays, and the linebacker position is one that's already stocked in Baltimore. So as it pertains to this guy, I do not see him returning in 2023. As we scroll down to number 16, we have another running back, Justice Hill, who is original to Baltimore, draft pick from several years ago. Still a young guy, 24 years old. Justice Hill had a major knee injury last year, what cost him his entire season. He has shown some flashes, some speed, some power, some quickness. He's even shown some return ability. I think Justice Hill, man, it's hard to say. He may make a return, but his deal has to be super, super low in order for him to return to Baltimore. And I think the likelihood that he returns is more like a 75, 25, 75. He returns 25, he doesn't. And here's part of the reason why. One, he's original to Baltimore. And I think Baltimore really likes Justice Hill. I think the fan base likes Justice Hill. And so I think that because there is such a plethora of a running backs going to be available both in the draft and also in free agency, that's going to drive Justice Hill's price down. And so because he is a good special teamers player, a special team player, not a special teamer player, I think that that certainly bodes well in his favor to return to Baltimore, but it has to be on a super low deal. And so I think at 75-25, Justice Hill does return to Baltimore. And if Justice Hill returns, that cancels out my take on Kenyon Drake. I think one of the two veterans will return to Baltimore this year, especially if Gus Edwards becomes a cap casualty. Let's jump down here to number 17. And we have guard Ben Powers, who had a lot of buzz about trade early on in the season. There was more questions if Baltimore was pumping him up in training camp in the preseason about how well he was doing. Well, obviously that wasn't a lot of fluff. That was the real deal. Ben Powers showed up, balled out this year, and I think that he will leave in free agency. Here's why: because somebody's looking for a solid guard, such as Ben Powers. And because he played so well, I think somebody will give him more money than Baltimore can afford to give him or is willing to offer to Ben Powers. So I do think that he gets paid, but it will not be in Baltimore in 2023. Okay. These are some restricted free agents. I won't hit all of these. We know who Tristan Colon is. Spent some time on a practice squad for a couple of years. Got moved up and played a backup role. In fact, played a really vital backup role. I do see Tristan Colon returning to Baltimore, probably in a low contract scenario, to be the backup to Tyler Lindenbaum. And if not on the 53-man roster, it will certainly be in a practice squad scenario. But I do see Tristan Colon returning to Baltimore. When we get down here, we have another linebacker, Christian Welch. Probably do not see him return to Baltimore because again, that inside linebacker room is so stocked already. Uh, I think he did play some special teams, which kind of votes well in his favor, but I just think because of the depth that's already there, I think that keeping Welch around will be um, a roster spot that can be given to another position of need for sure. So I do not see Christian Welch returning to the Baltimore Ravens in 2023. As we keep scrolling, we have a safety, Geno Stone. Um, Unfortunately, man, I see Baltimore losing Geno Stone in free agency. Geno Stone is a corner, excuse me, a safety who will hit you. He has shown some cover ability. He has shown some willingness to play downhill and blitz a little bit and play the run real well. He's a young guy, 23 years old, just coming off, excuse me, his rookie contract with the Baltimore Ravens. He was on a 1 year deal. You know, he was brought in by the Baltimore originally, and so this would be the end of what would be a rookie deal. He's on a $1 million contract, but I do see somebody paying Geno Stone to come in and be maybe even a fringe starter on another team, but I do not think it's with Baltimore in 2023. Quarterback Tyler Huntley. Not 100% sure what happens with him. As you see, he's only 24 years old, young guy. He's had some ups and downs over the last couple of years, but he is a solid backup. He's on a team-friendly deal, 1 year, less than $1 million. But I do think that his salary goes up, and I'm not sure if it goes up with the Baltimore Ravens. But because he knows, well, I can't say he knows that system. He knows the team, but I don't know if he's going to know the offensive system for sure. So I think it right now is about 70% he comes back, 30% he does not. But I do not see him getting the big deal like I previously thought. So I do see him returning to Baltimore in 2023. As we keep scrolling down or strolling down, I think I've used that term as well. Deshaun Phillips. Um, don't know a whole lot about him. I know he played some special teams and he was actually in some games at the end of the season. I do think he comes back. And I think he comes back probably because he feels a special teams role. Um, think he has shown some ability to play the outside linebacker position as well. And he is a special teamer, which always bodes well in Baltimore. So I do see him coming back, but it has to be on a low deal, very, very team friendly. Something like this 1 year, less than $1 million deal he's already on. But I can see Deshaun Phillips returning to Baltimore in 2023. If not on the 53-man roster, certainly practice squad with the potential to get moved up sometime during the season. Number 23, long snapper. Who I don't know if anybody really talks about the long snapper, Nick Moore. Um, didn't even know his name, and you'll see me state that in in the breakdown of the positions. But I guess he comes back because nobody's really drafting long snappers. Um, and so because he's already in place, Baltimore knows him. He knows Baltimore. I can't see him coming back on a team-friendly deal, such as the one he's currently on. Um, and that's it, guys. That is the long list of the Baltimore Ravens unrestricted free agents and restricted free agents for 2023. Um, long list, long list. And with this list, man, it is really a representation that there is a lot of uncertainty in Baltimore for sure. I think that with Lamar Jackson having a huge question mark, Tyler Huntley having a question mark, it really kind of makes things hugely uncertain in Ravens Nation. But John Harbaugh and EDC feel confident they can get a deal done. So we'll see what that looks like. But listen, thank you guys, man, for tuning in. If you like this kind of content, man, hit the like button on the way out the door. Hit subscribe if you hadn't already. Let me know what you want me to know. And again, I'm your guy, Leon Boulanger. This is the GM, and I'm out.